Yes, welcome into SportsBIT, betting insight today. Pauly and Teddy Monday, April 3rd. Big game breakdown, just one game to go over. You know where we're going, championship game. Zags in North Carolina, deep dive. Part one of a two-part series with Veno. Bullpens, how to make some money in MLB, and the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Boy, the dogs were barking last night in the association. Charlotte, Lakers, Denver, Nets, Dallas, Bulls, all straight-up winners. Pacers and the Sixers also get the money, Teddy. Wild if you had some money line parlays here.
Woof, woof. And we see a couple of days like this every year during the NBA season. I remember one, from back in January or February where there was like 9 dogs covered on or cashed money line tickets, and another one of these days on Sunday. And more than a few bad bets when it comes to how the markets treated some of these favorites that did not perform well on Sunday.
I didn't understand this line, and it was Pelicans money. Steamed up from 6 to 8.5. Bulls ran them out. They were up big at the half and won 117 to 110.
Yeah, I mean, the Bulls are acting like a team that really wants to make the playoffs. You know, Rondo just missed a triple-double, 10 points, 9 boards, 9 assists. Jimmy Butler went off for 39. And all of a sudden, this Bulls team has become a little bit interesting. They're up to 38 and 39, just one game below 500. And when you look at what they have to close out the rest of the regular season, Pauly, doesn't look too tough, does it?
It's easy. New York, Philly, Brooklyn, Orlando, Brooklyn again. And the key is 6-2 straight up against Cleveland and Boston this season. But I think they're going to do better than the 7 or the 8 because Atlanta can't win a game. So the Bulls, I think the Bulls are going to catch the Hawks for the 6th seed.
Yeah. And again, you look at that back end of the schedule for the Bulls. You know, 3 road games, but in the Garden against the Knicks, in Philly against the 76ers, then Brooklyn, Orlando, Brooklyn. There's no team in the NBA that faces a weaker final 5 opponents than the Chicago Bulls. They're in excellent shape. And, of course, this is clearly a better team without Dwayne Wade in the lineup. I don't think you can make any question about that now. Wade was hogging shots. Wade was slowing the pace. And without him, well, you can see. That's why Jimmy Butler is smiling so much right now.
And the team we just mentioned, another bad bet. Atlanta bet up from 2 to 3.5 in Brooklyn. They lose again.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to the Hawks in the first round of the playoffs because I think they're going to get swept. And I think this is a team we're going to be able to make money betting against. But why wait to the postseason? There was a ton of Atlanta money yesterday. -2 up to -3.5. No show in Brooklyn. And it's a type of game that a playoff contender is not supposed to lose. The market mistake wasn't betting the Hawks like they're a contender. Atlanta is not.
All right, we've been, we missed you on the weekend, but let me just recap this here, talking to the audience. What a wild week it was in the NBA. Sunday, remember the Clippers, last Sunday, the Clippers were up 18 with 5 minutes left and they lost. It was what, 6,756-1 the last 20 years. The next night, Dallas was up 13 with 3.5 minutes left. They don't score the rest of the game and lose. Tuesday, the Wizards were laying 9 and down 13 in the 4th, and they covered against the Lakers. Then Orlando was up 14 with 6 minutes left, catching 5, and Orlando gets the money in overtime. And then Friday night, OKC up 21 in the 3rd quarter, getting 3 against the Spurs, and the Spurs get the money.
That's a heck of a week for bad beats. And if you were on, if you were on more than 1 or 2 of those, my condolences. That's rough. But on the other hand, that's the nature of the NBA. And what we do in this business, Pauly, we're going to take punches. You're inevitably going to take punches. You're going to go through runs where you're on the right side of some of these bad beats. You're going to go through runs when you're on the wrong side of some of these bad beats. If you've been taking punches all last week, take a breath, take a day off, come back and fight them again this week. It's not the end of the be-all or end-all.
Yep, Warriors finally played an over last night, too. That going against the opening number. That was 14 straight unders and 18-1 in their last 19, but it was a track meet against the Wizards in that one. Bad for the books. The Oregon-North Carolina total steamed up from 148.5 to 152.5, fell 153. Also a bad result. Yes, the 2 underdogs got there, but most people parlayed the favorites on the money line or took the points. So that was a bad result with the 2 teams winning but not getting the money.
Yeah, it really was an odd situation where you had 2 relatively short favorites, both of whom won the game straight up, neither of whom covered the number. But when you talk about the beat, I mean, the books took a beating on that total. Make no mistake about it. You know, that total got bet up 4 points for a Final Four game, and it just sneaked over by the hook. 152.5 is a close. Game fell 153. Overbetters celebrated like the heels, and the bookmakers lamented like the ducks.
Here's another one. Charlotte OKC total, 216 down to 211.5. Whoops, right in the middle.
Yeah, never good for the books when a big move falls inside, right in the middle. And we're going to talk some of the trends. There's a big trend going right now with Charlotte overs. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
All right, here we go. Already the first day of the baseball season. We got a bad beat. The Giants bullpen picks right up where they left off last year. 2 outs, but Melanson blows it, and the Diamondbacks get a walk-off.
Sure, and of course, remember, that total got bet up from 8 up to 8.5 over minus 120. You know, so ton of over money. And of course, Chase Field is a much different place with the roof open than it is with it closed. The markets are definitely paying attention to what the roof is going to be at Chase Field in Arizona on a daily basis. The ball carries with it open. It does not carry with the roof closed. But, I mean, this is how you start a season, Paul. You see what Bumgarner did yesterday?
First guy in MLB history, first pitcher, rather, to hit 2 home runs in opening day. He has the franchise record now for a pitcher. He's got 16 home runs.
Yeah, and my God, did you see what he was hitting? He was the 112.5 mile an hour smash is the hardest hit home run by a player in the StatCast era. He now is the top 3, and his second home run made it the top 4, the top 4 hardest hit home runs. Bumgarner gets it. He threw brilliantly. 11 strikeouts, no walks. What happens? Nope, the under doesn't cash. Nope, San Fran doesn't cash. That's a bad beat in the same game. Giants 4-3 in the bottom of the 8th, 5-4 in the bottom of the 9th. Would they have a 5% win probability, according to ESPN Stats and Info, with 2 outs and nobody on in the bottom of the 9th? Arizona got the job done against the Giants defense that cost them plenty of games last year and has already cost them 1 this year.
How about some streaks in the NBA? Warriors 9-1 ATS the last 10. Blazers 9-1 ATS the last 10. But they lose Nurkic out for the rest of the regular season. Hornets 7 straight overs versus the closing number, 5 by double digits, and oh boy, the Hawks 1-10 ATS at home since the break.
Yeah, and it's worth noting the 1 comes with a big asterisk for the 1-10 ATS at home since the break. They won by 6 as 3 points favorites over Toronto. The Raptors didn't have Lowry, and they shot 4 of 25 from 3-point range. If Toronto shoots 20% from 3-point range in that game, the Hawks would be over since the All-Star break at home. They have been a consistent money loser. That's just some of them. What about the Warriors' totals? We talked about that. 14-1 to the under last 15, 18-2 to the under against the opening number in the last 20. So there's some streakers. Warriors, Blazers, Hornets, Hawks, Warriors under, all cashing tickets of late.
National championship game. Can a team from a small conference win it all? This will be terrific. And a big handle to sportsbooks. Gonzaga and Carolina up next. And Rob Veno on Bullpens on SportsBIT. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBIT Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Time for Big Game Breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com, and powered by UWager. Here it is, Zagalicious against North Carolina. Carolina only 1.5, 153.5 the total. Early money on the Zags. And how about this, Teddy? You got to go back to Loyola, Chicago in 1963. Remember, Gonzaga their arena holds 6,000 people. They're in a mid-major, but they're in a mid-major conference. They're 40 minutes away from winning it all, Teddy.
What about, Butler was in the same spot twice. Correct. And we don't know that Gonzaga is going to win this game. We'll have to stick around for play of the day on this one. But, look, the final North Carolina game of the season is key like all the others. And this is something, I don't even know how many times we talk about this on SportsBIT. You've been paying attention. Hopefully you made a little bit of money off it. This Tar Heels team is special on the offensive glass. And you saw what happened on Saturday. Kennedy Meeks, an absolute monster. 25 points, 14 rebounds, 8 of those 14 on the offensive glass versus Oregon. And he's not just a muscle guy, 6'10", 260, but he really exemplifies the story of how you learn rebounding, technique, and positioning with experience. This is going to be his 144th collegiate game, his 118th collegiate start. It's going to be his 17th NCAA tournament game. He's got 129 career tourney rebounds already. 403 career offensive rebounds. Now look, the rest of the team stunk against Oregon. The rest of the team was, 14 of 55 shooting in that game. And look at the quote from Roy Williams. If it wasn't for Kennedy Meeks, we wouldn't have been in the basketball game. Note that he didn't say wouldn't have won. He said we wouldn't have been in the game. And I agree with him, Pauly. Meeks was absolutely different, not just winning and losing, being competitive and being non-competitive on a day where most of the supporting cast wasn't very good.
Nope, Hicks was terrible, 1 of 12, and Barry couldn't get his shot going either. I believe 2 of 14 in the win. And I got this right. I thought it was a good thing when Gonzaga lost to BYU. Pretty much every player told the media the past few days we wouldn't be in this situation without that loss. We found out what we had to do to close out games. We were getting lazy, some dumb mistakes. And think of all the pressure if Gonzaga would have entered this tournament or continued to make a deep run undefeated and try to chase history. So that turned out to be a good thing. But I thought Kenny Smith had it backwards on Saturday night. He said Gonzaga hasn't faced a team like Carolina. No. It's the other way around. Carolina hasn't seen a team like this physical and this big. When you go 6'9", 6'10", the 7-footer Collins and Karnowski 7'1", watch out. And the bigs were terrific in the win against South Carolina, especially Collins, who looks to be one and done and go to the NBA. A lot of moves. The Vegas kid, he was terrific. He had 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 blocks. Karnowski had the big dunk and also the lay-in to put them up 5 when they trailed in that game. And this is start 152, or game 152, and start 118 for Karnowski. 137 career wins, which almost assuredly will never be broken, Teddy.
Yeah, and again, so we talked about all the experience for the Tar Heels front court. It's not like the Zags front court can't match that experience game for game. And you're right. 137 career wins for Karnowski. That is one of those records that is going to stand for quite some time. But frankly, the more I watch him, the more I think he's a stiff, Pauly. I really do. And stiff is not the right word, but he's not going to be an impact player on the NBA level. Collins, the freshman Collins has outplayed him every single game in this tournament. And you said he's a Vegas kid. What do you have, 6 blocks, 10 rebounds, 14 points against South Carolina? And Karnowski's a big body. He's going to control space. He's going to get his fair share of rebounds, and he's got soft hands around the basket. But in terms of making impact plays, I trust Collins to do more than Karnowski, but it's also Jonathan Williams with the size. And it's the reserve Tilly with the size, another 2 guys who stand 6'9" and 7 foot. And that certainly is a type of size that North Carolina hasn't seen on a regular basis this season.
Yep. Deep team, big as hell, and number 1 defense in the country. How about the guards? Barry's ankles held up, but again, the shooting really struggled. Hit the three-pointer to start, 1 of 13 the rest of the game. Also, what happened at the free throw line? Oh, my God, 5 of 9 at the free throw line, and he only had 2 assists, but here comes Williams-Goss. He stunk in the first 3 games of the tournament. He's been great against Xavier and South Carolina. Last 2 games, 23 points. Again, against Xavier, 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. Against South Carolina, 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. They only turned the ball over 12 times against South Carolina, and that was a difference. Remember, they were sloppy in the first 3 games.
Yeah, but I kind of think Gonzaga was sloppy in all 5 tournament games. Well, maybe not the Xavier game, but the South Carolina game, I thought they had opportunities to put the Gamecocks away and didn't take advantage of that. A lot of bad shot selection. And look, they didn't commit a whole lot of turnovers against South Carolina, which is a testament to their ball handling ability. But, yes, South Carolina plays a different style of defense than North Carolina. And yes, North Carolina's season-long defensive numbers aren't going to show you a whole lot. But, have you been watching Justin Jackson the last couple of games? Justin Jackson, a real underrated factor in the last 2 North Carolina wins. He shut down Malik Monk until those triples in the final minute against Kentucky, and then he held down Dylan Brooks and Tyler Dorsey, whichever one he happened to be on, in the Oregon game. He played really good defense. And, Williams, he also got defensive options against Williams-Goss, who, hit everything in the game against South Carolina for a guy who had a rough tournament. I'm not convinced he can do that twice in a row. Instead of Barry, he can go to Theo Pinson. and make him work through a bigger defender, or Jackson to stop Williams-Goss. And you ask me what the key is for Gonzaga in this game. He's the guy. He's a straw that stirs the drink. If Williams-Goss is a rough night, the Zags will not win the title tonight. If Williams-Goss brings his A game like he did on Saturday, they're live to cut down the nets in Arizona.
Full marks to North Carolina. This reminds me of the Spurs after they blew that series in the NBA Finals against the Heat. It bothered them. They thought about it all offseason, came back and won the title the next year. Carolina loses on the three-point shot at the buzzer to Villanova. They get all the way back. See if they can do the same thing as San Antonio coming up tonight. Rob Veno, Bullpens, and the play of the day on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com next.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
It's deep dive time here on SportsBIT, and with the Major League Baseball season beginning in earnest this week, it's time to bring in one of my favorite guests from last year. We had Rob Veno on this show a year ago at this time, and Rob gave us bullpens to look at that were good and bad, lineups to look at that were good and bad, teams we want to bet over, teams we want to bet under. And the information he gave us was so good that I remembered it a year later and decided to have him on the show one more time. Rob Veno, welcome to SportsBIT.
Good afternoon, Teddy. How are you, buddy?
I'm a little bit under the weather, but I can handle it for at least the purposes of this two-part interview. Of course, part one today, part two tomorrow on this deep dive. And let's get it right off the bat, Rob. Where do folks get a hold of you? What makes you an expert on MLB baseball?
Well, the place to get a hold of me, obviously, same as it's been for a lot of years, sportsmemo.com. You can get all the work and selections that I release right there at sportsmemo.com. You can also visit Rob Veno's Sports, a hugely statistical-based site that I've opened up. So both of those places, sportsmemo.com and also robvenosports.com.
And Rob, I know that you were doing this full-time when I first moved to Las Vegas in 1998. You've been doing betting on sports as a serious professional for more than 2 decades. And you and I have a very similar concept when it comes to baseball. All right, we both think the starting pitchers are generally priced correctly. So where do you find the value? Where do you find the weakness in the baseball lines? And there's 2 areas that I've been able to find weakness. 1, good and bad bullpens. 2, good and bad lineups. Part 1, today we're going to talk bullpens, and let's start with a bullpen that you have highlighted as one of the best in baseball, maybe the best in MLB, that bullpen being that of the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, and I'll preface the whole thing, Teddy, by saying that when I look at bullpens nowadays, I have to find a minimum of 4 dependable arms. The way the game is played nowadays, I use pitch counts more than innings, so we want 4 arms. 5 makes you a great bullpen, in my opinion. And we're going to start with Baltimore. Obviously, the closer, Zach Britton, one of the best in the game. He's been durable. Certainly a huge strikeout guy, not much in the way of walks. The setup man this year is going to be Brad Brock. Again, another power arm. Certainly has put together great statistical seasons. The last 3, he's going to take the place of Darren O'Day, who will shift into the 7th inning. Boy, that makes Baltimore a 6-inning team right there because they can lock down 7, 8, and 9. But you can add to their strong bullpen, Teddy. Michael Givens is an up-and-comer, 26 years old, was in the World Baseball Classic this year, 96 Ks in 74 2/3 last year. So 4 dependable power arms. The addition of Donnie Hart, a newcomer to this pen from the left-hand side, should help. And also Tyler Wilson, kind of a swingman type. He should see some spot starts. But to me, that makes Baltimore, with all those dependable power arms, the best bullpen in Major League Baseball, at least for betting purposes. They can lock down the late innings.
And that's so key, obviously, not blowing games late. And, of course, when you're talking about totals, a bullpen that gets outs makes a huge difference compared to a bullpen that does not. Another bullpen you wanted to highlight, that of the Cleveland Indians, another serious World Series contender. They went to the World Series last year, and Rob, you like this team a lot, both offensively and particularly here when it comes to their bullpen.
Yeah, and again, they can go toe-to-toe with Baltimore, Teddy, at the back end of the rotation. What I like to call the back third of the game, 7, 8, and 9. If you just work from the 9th inning backwards, Cody Allen, hard-throwing, flame-throwing, strikeout guy as their closer, certainly proven now to be an elite closer. Eighth inning setup, Andrew Miller. You don't get any better than that. I don't have to describe what Andrew Miller's worth is to a team in the eighth inning. Seventh inning, Brian Shaw. Again, power arm, strikeout, ground ball oriented. Really solid 7, 8, and 9 for Cleveland. Dan Otero came back with the best season of his career last year. 1.53 ERA, 0.91 whip in 62 appearances, through 70 and 2/3 innings. And I think the fact that he only has to be the fourth best in this mix really helps Otero. That's solid. And then Zach McAllister is going to be kind of a combination, Teddy. Long relief, maybe some seventh inning. He's got some starters experience in him. Good ground ball guy. So there's 5 arms right there. And they've picked up Boone Logan, situational lefty. He'll only have to come in and get lefties out. I think that makes for, a top-notch bullpen right there for the Cleveland Indians.
We've got about 1 minute left here on today's show with Rob Veno. Of course, you can see part 2 of our deep dive tomorrow, talking about lineups that you want to be paying attention to in MLB baseball. But there's 2 teams I want to cover in this last minute, Rob. And let's start with a team that most people don't seem to like, the Miami Marlins. You think their bullpen might be a pleasant surprise.
I think it could be, Teddy. A.J. Ramos, nice closer. Not exactly one of the top 3, 4 elite, but certainly he's up there. Brad Ziegler comes over to provide setup help. His arm just seems to be a rubber band. Kyle Barraclough, a guy who is a huge strikeout to innings pitch guy in the 7th inning. David Phelps, Yankee fans will remember him, another power arm. And they picked up Junichi Tozawa from Boston to fill in. These 5 guys put together, Teddy, I think can really surprise and help that starting staff, which tragically lost Jose Fernandez last September.
And real quick, Rob, before we let you go for today, the number 1 bad bullpen in baseball, in your mind's coming in to the
it's got to be the Atlanta Braves. Any team that uses Jim Johnson as their closer is the worst bullpen in my mind. I don't even have to look deeper than that, Teddy. No deep dive necessary for the Atlanta Braves. But in all seriousness, you just can't find anybody. You can't find 2 good arms in that bullpen. Maybe 1, but that's a bullpen that'll give up some runs, no doubt about it.
Rob Veno from Rob Veno Sports and SportsMemo.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Check out part 2 of our deep dive tomorrow.
Back on SportsBIT, Betting Inside today. Good job by Rob Veno. Part 2 tomorrow, and then we fire the cannon. Masters preview Wednesday with Brady Cannon. He's got some long shots already picked out. Looking forward to that. Could be some wind and rain the first couple days at Augusta. Money time, play of the day. Back to the championship game. Make your case for Carolina, Teddy.
Real simple. Game number 601. Let's take North Carolina minus 1.5. Early money has driven this down from 2.5 at the opener. And look, outside of Meeks, the Tar Heels really couldn't have played a whole lot worse on Saturday. So there's a lot of guys that can bounce back off of that game. And if Pinson and Jackson take turns guarding Goss, I think the Zags are going to struggle to score. Roy and the Tar Heels, no strangers to the big moments. Let's take North Carolina, game number 601, minus 1.5. That's our play of the day.
Also, the Zags got to play a complete game. You can't have a bad 5 or 10 minutes like they did against Xavier or South Carolina, or it could be curtains. All right, loaded show coming up the rest of the week. We'll update NBA win totals as well. Only 10 days left in the association. We'll talk to you then on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Thanks for watching.